It's cruel how someone who once made you feel special can disappear like you never existed. If you've ever been ghosted by an avoidant partner, you know this feeling too well. No goodbye, no explanation, no closure, just silence stretching for weeks, maybe months, like your love never mattered enough to deserve a single word. And so you start to ask yourself, were they ever real with me? Was I just someone convenient at the time? They wouldn't do this to someone they really cared about, would they? But here's what no one ever told you about avoidantly attached people. They don't disappear because you're unimportant. They disappear because something about you started to feel too important. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Avoidants don't leave because they feel nothing. They leave because the feelings got too real, and they don't have the internal map to stay without panicking. In the first few days after they disappear, you might assume they're doing just fine, maybe even relieved. And in a way, you're right. For avoidantly attached individuals, distance feels like relief. They finally feel free of the pressure. No more texts they don't know how to respond to. No more emotional questions that require self-reflection they never learned how to do. No more intensity they feel unequipped to handle. When you text them, they don't feel loved, they feel overwhelmed, like they're being pulled into a wave they can't swim in. When you ask, "Are we okay?" there's no honest answer that won't either hurt you or shame them. So they choose the only option that feels safe: withdrawal, silence, disappearing. And then, when you stop, when the messages stop coming, when your energy no longer reaches them, they don't respond the way you expect. They don't run back. They don't realize their mistake. They don't send a "I miss you" text. What you get in return is a dense silence, heavy and invisible, but sitting on your chest like a stone. You might think they're cold, unfeeling, but the truth is, behind that silence is a storm of emotion they don't know how to name. Avoidants don't disappear because they feel nothing. They disappear because they're feeling too much and they don't have the tools to handle it. They get triggered, but instead of crying or panicking like the anxiously attached, they go numb. They shut down. They lock the door to their heart and throw away the key. So while you're waiting for a sign of care, they're busy pretending nothing hurts because that's the only survival mechanism they've ever known. What you call ghosting, they call staying in control in a world where emotions have never felt safe. The truth is, when an avoidantly attached person ghosts you, it's rarely out of coldness or cruelty. They do it from a nervous system that was wired often in childhood to believe that intimacy is dangerous, emotions are unsafe, and closeness can't last without chaos. Every time you reached out asking for clarity, connection, or reassurance, it wasn't received as love. It was received as pressure. They didn't consciously think, "I'm going to disappear." They simply felt, "I can't breathe. This is too much. I need to get out." Oh, and they did the only thing their body has ever known how to do in moments of overwhelm. They pulled away. In the mind of someone avoidant, distance equals safety. Not talking, not explaining, not engaging emotionally. That's their strategy for managing feelings they don't know how to hold. And while they may seem detached on the surface, what's happening internally is often a quiet storm of guilt, shame, and sometimes even grief. But they don't know how to sit with those feelings. The more they think about you and the pain they may have caused, the more shame they feel. And here's the key. For someone avoidant, shame doesn't lead to repair. It leads to more avoidance. So 30 days later, what they're carrying isn't, "I didn't care." It's more like, "I hurt someone who mattered, but I didn't have the emotional strength to stay, explain, or make it right." Emser. This is a kind of passive escape, not because they lack a heart, but because they lack the emotional skills to stay present when things become too real. And if you've been hurt by that silence, know this: you weren't wrong about their feelings. You were just loving someone who never learned how to stay in love without fear. No, they're not heartless. They're just stuck in a cycle of unconscious emotional reactions, survival patterns built long ago in childhood, where emotions weren't met with warmth but with judgment. They were once children who cried and got yelled at, felt sad and were ignored, asked for help and were told they were weak. Sometimes, they were even punished for expressing any emotional need at all. So a part of them learned early on, that it's safer to be strong alone than to depend on anyone else. But being strong without emotional tools doesn't lead to resilience, it leads to emotional shutdown. The more they love, the more panic they feel. The kinder you are, the more unsafe it becomes. Why? Because their nervous system was trained to only recognize conditional love, love that required them to perform, please, or suppress themselves. Love that equaled obedience. Love that equaled self-erasure. Love that came with consequences. So when you show up with warmth, honesty, and the desire to truly connect, it's not received as safety, it's registered as a threat. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you're touching the very parts of them that have never felt safe before. You think you're offering love, but to them, that love feels too close, too real, too vulnerable. They don't even know they're retreating. They just know, I need space. I feel overwhelmed. Something feels off. And you, not knowing the hidden trauma underneath, start thinking, I'm too much. I must have done something wrong. But the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just standing in front of someone who hasn't emotionally matured enough to hold the kind of love you were offering. They're not a bad person, but they're not yet someone who knows how to love either. They need to learn what you've already been practicing: connection, emotional literacy, and the courage to stay when things get real. If you're the one hurting from an avoidant person's silence, if you've spent nights questioning your worth, replaying old conversations, searching for signs that they once meant what they said, let me say this clearly. You are not weak. You are not too much. You are not alone. Their disappearance does not define your value, and it doesn't necessarily define their feelings either. Avoidance is a reaction, not a declaration. They didn't disappear because you're unlovable. They disappeared because they don't know how to stay when love becomes real. And what you need now isn't more explanations or closure or another breadcrumb of hope. What you need now is to return to yourself and ask one honest question. Why do I keep choosing connections where I'm the one always trying so hard? Love should not feel like a test you have to pass. It should not feel like a war you have to win to be chosen. It should not be a space where you doubt your worth just because someone else is emotionally unequipped to show up. You deserve a love that you don't have to chase. A love that doesn't run when things get close. A love that doesn't hide in silence or disappear into the void. You deserve a love that, when things get difficult, says, I'm not perfect, but I'm here. Healing begins the moment you stop using someone else's behavior as the measure of your worth. When you stop telling yourself the old story, if I had tried harder, maybe they would have stayed, and you begin to write a new one. If they don't know how to stay, then I will be the one who knows how to leave. And so you don't need someone to choose you in order to prove you're worthy. You choosing yourself after putting others first for too long, that is your emotional rebirth. That is where love begins again inside you. You don't have to get over the pain in a day. You just need to avoid letting it pull you into self-destructive patterns whenever it flares up. And to do that, you need a simple yet powerful tool: returning to yourself in the very moment you're triggered. A trigger isn't a problem, it's a signal, a warning light from your nervous system that something familiar from the past is making you feel unsafe. If you tend to be anxiously attached or have experienced a relationship with an avoidant partner, you know that feeling all too well. They see your message but don't reply to your heart races. A prolonged silence to your mind spins out interpretations. You feel fear and anxiety. You want to do something, text again, explain yourself, or disappear before they vanish. That moment is where you must pause, because if you don't, you'll get caught in the loop, feeling insecure, reacting on autopilot, regretting it, or feeling even more hurt. In Diary of an Avoidant, Alexis Freelander shares a 3-step tool she uses herself after years of therapy that failed to stick. 3 steps to keep you standing in the eye of your emotional storm. Step 1, name the feeling. Say to yourself, out loud or silently, something like, I'm triggered. This isn't reality. This is fear. It may sound small, but neurologically, it interrupts the automatic fight or flight response. It reminds you, you're not that helpless child abandoned in the past. You're an adult who can notice your emotions and choose what to do next. Step 2, Locate the feeling in your body. Instead of analyzing, tune in. Ask yourself, where is this feeling seated in my body? My chest, my throat, my stomach, my back, my neck? Don't push it away. Just be with it like holding a crying child without demanding they stop. By locating the sensation, you anchor yourself in the present and break free from past overwhelm. Step 3, breath. Here's how you tell your nervous system, we are safe. End. Perform 4 counts in, 6 counts out, and repeat 3 times. Slow, gentle, no forcing. Extending the exhale is a proven biological hack. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, calming your stress and anxiety. In simple terms, it shifts you from survival mode back to present moment. Repeat these 3 steps anytime you feel out of control. You won't be perfect, but every time you pause instead of react, you're carving a new neural pathway. You're retraining your attachment system so it no longer flees or chases, but knows how to stay, how to pause, how to listen. Maturity isn't about never getting hurt. Maturity is knowing you're hurting and still choosing to care for yourself in that pain. If you're haunted by the disappearance of an avoidant partner, pause for a moment and take a deep breath. You don't need their apology to move forward. You don't have to wait for a text, a call, or an explanation to prove your worth. Instead, ask yourself this honest and piercing question. How long have I let others silence my heart? This question isn't just about the past, it's the start of a commitment to yourself. You're not too sensitive. You're someone with a heart that yearns to be seen, understood, and fully present. That is a fundamental human need. If that heart was ever left behind, ignored, or treated like a burden today, you can be the first to come back and claim it. Claim it by treating yourself with the kindness you wish others had shown you, listening to your feelings without judgment, without suppression, setting boundaries so no one ever mutes your heart again. Remember, every second you choose to love yourself is a second you're rebuilding your trust and intrinsic worth. You deserve a love that doesn't require you to fight for it, a connection that doesn't demand you go silent to exist. And from this moment on, you can begin a new journey, one where you actively hold your own heart, never waiting on anyone else. Loving yourself is the first step to never being left alone again.